This is part 2 of the Predictive Modeling Fundamentals 1. And in this tutorial, what we're going to be doing is getting our data for our project. We're going to put it into SPSS Modeler and start doing some preparation. So the first step of this is getting our data set. And there's a link in the document, the tutorial, that goes along with this series that directs you to find the training and testing data sets. But I have that open here, so it's just kaggle.com/c as in cat/Titanic/data. And so you should see something like I have on the screen here. What this is a data set of the passengers on the Titanic with some of the information about them, such as what they paid for a ticket, their sex, their age, where they were staying at on the Titanic, and things like that. And then our class variable, what we're trying to predict is whether they survived or died when the Titanic sank. So you can just come out here. It's 2 CSV files that you need to download. So you want to get the train CSV and the test CSV. So just download those files to wherever you usually work out of, and then we'll be ready to move forward. So once you have those downloaded, you're going to want to go back to SPSS Modeler, and you can start a new stream. And what we're going to do is add under the sources palette, we have a var file node, and this is what you can use for importing flat files into Modeler. So the dialog here, it's very easy. Where it says file, just to the right of that, there's a button to open a browser to select the file that you want to load. So just navigate to where you have your training file first. That's what we want to get in. So I'm just going to find this here. Okay. And really quickly, a nice feature we have is we can preview the data. So once we do this, we can see the attributes that we have for the data set. And this just is going to show you the top 10 rows in the CSV file. So we have an ID, whether they survived, the class, which you can see, it looks like something didn't work right because we have a P class and a name, but it looks like the P class should actually is part of the name. And so that'll happen sometimes when you have a CSV file, when there's quotes and the reader doesn't know exactly how to handle it. So that's all right. So what we want to do here is the double quotes at the bottom. We're just going to switch that from discard to pair and discard. So now that that's changed, I'm going to preview again. Here you can see with the preview that by switching the double quotes to pair and discard, we fixed our data. So now everything looks like how we expected. So the passenger ID looks good. Survived is a 0 or 1. We have a class for where the passenger was at, the name, the sex, age, and a few other details here. Okay, so we can click OK to that, and now we see that this is pretty nice that the node's been renamed the name of our file, so instead of our file. So now we know that this is our training data. And so what we can do now, if we go to the output palette, we can add a table node, and I just did that by double clicking with the training node selected. So a different way that you could do that is to drag this on the node onto the canvas, and you can right click your input node, your source, and click connect, and click on where you're trying to connect it to. Another way that you can connect nodes, and you can get rid of connections by right clicking and deleting. So another way that is a little bit quicker, a little bit of a shortcut, if you're using a mouse and you have a mouse wheel in the center, if you click down on that while on top of the node that you want to connect, you can see that it draws a line, and by releasing it next to the node I want to go out to, it's going to make that connection there. So that's a nice little shortcut to make easy connections between nodes. Okay, and the output table is just going to show us just a visual way, basically to have a grid of the data within Modeler. So I added that, made the connection, right-clicked on it, and clicked Run. And this shows us, instead of just the top 10 rows, we have all of our data in a nice table. So this is good just to get a sense of what kind of data you're working with, but it's not really good for doing any kind of adjustments, and you can see here that we have some null values. So this is just kind of a first step, and we're going to continue on with doing some more analysis with our data. So what we can do now is we can start exploring. Since we have our data in Modeler, we can do some exploring. So if you go to the output palette, you can add a data audit node. And so once again, we can connect our input data to the data audit node. And you can see right away it detects that there's 12 fields. And I just double click that. And if I click run, this is going to show us some information about the data that we have. So this is a nice way to do some initial exploratory analysis on your data. We see the graph where we have some histograms here. You see that the age attribute is pretty normally distributed. Our categorical variables, it looks like sex is pretty well balanced. And you can see the details you have with the descriptive statistics. Obviously it's going to be there for your continuous variables, but any categoricals, it's going to be, we do have, let's see here, for sex we have, it tells you the name of categories. For cabin we have 148, so that's may not be a good predictor for us. But we do see that the age, the mean, our average age is 29.67. We have, going to quality, which I didn't show before, we have 75% complete fields, 20% are complete records. This is definitely something you want to do every time you start a project where you're doing check to make sure that your data is high quality. Okay, so that's just an exploratory analysis. The next step, the next thing we want to do is do some preparation of our data. So if you go to the field ops palette, on the far left you'll see a type node. So what this does, and just once again by double clicking I bring it onto the canvas, and what this does is this gives us our field or our attribute or variable, however you want to say it, our measurement type. So if it's a continuous, categorical, or we have flag also, nominal, ordinal, and the role that it has. So something easy that we can do at this point to kind of save us some work is we can just say that the survived variable is our target. So what that means is that as we build models, it's going to automatically know that we want to be predicting the survived. So we want to predict that 1 or 0 whether the passenger survived or not. So this is just, these steps are going to go through this kind of thing. So at this point what we're going to do is actually remove some of these by giving them a role of none. So you can see this is probably intuitive, but things like name, that's not going to be a good predictor for us. Ticket, we can switch that to none. That won't be a good predictor for us. And then we're also going to mark cabin and embarked as being none. So when we build a model, we're going to be taking our inputs and trying to predict our target. Okay, and we can click apply here and click OK. All right. So the next thing we want to do is do some more data preparation, but this time we're going to be using a auto data prep node that can be found in field ops. So I'm just going to drag this up on the canvas, and now if I connect these two and go in, then I have my options here. And just want to point out that you can see that there's a red triangle here, and you'll see that once we complete this process, that's gonna change. So in the tutorial, it has guides, it has steps for how we want to have all this set up. We want to keep it set as balanced for speed and accuracy. And when we go to settings, we're going to go to prepare inputs and target. And here we have some checkboxes. These all should be pretty straightforward for what we're doing here. I'm going to uncheck the reorder nominal fields because we want to keep them in the same order just to make it easier. We can leave the other boxes checked. The other thing that we want to do on this screen is uncheck the transform continuous field. So if we leave this checked, it's what this node will do is normalize our continuous variables to put them on a z-score transformation, so on a scale based on our standard deviation and means that we've calculated here. So just to keep everything, we don't want to do any transformations. We're just going to uncheck this. And we can click apply here. And let's click on analyze data to run this node. Okay. And when we click preview, you can see now that we have some new transformed classes, and we also have age transformed. So this did work for us, and so we can click OK, and that completed our data preparation steps for this lab.